بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين.
Welcome to our program on Islam in Focus. Today's topic is the pillars of Islam. I've got today with us three guests which are qualified as sheikhs and alims, although they prefer calling themselves students. So I'll start off with a dua first and then an introduction from each one of the guests. Sheikh Bassam, can you say a dua or a recitation from the Quran for us, please?
Sure. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي ذلكم يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون.
Thank you very much. Can you translate it for us?
Yeah, the verse that was read is from Surah An-Nahl, which is the 16th chapter of Quran, and it's verse number 90. In it Allah says, indeed Allah has commanded you to perform justice, to be kind to others, and to give to near relatives. And He has forbidden you from shameful acts and evil acts, and oppression or transgression. He has warned you that you may be reminded.
Thank you for that recitation, and I'm sure it's going to have some relevance to the discussion we're going to have today. Before we get right into the discussion on the pillars of Islam, which is a very popular subject and well known to Muslims worldwide, let's start with an introduction, starting from Sheikh Bassam on my right.
Okay. Pillars of Islam are five.
You could first introduce yourself and then we'll discuss.
Okay. I'm Bassam Ubaid, the Imam of the Islamic Center in Charlotte.
Thank you very much.
I'm Shamaruddin. I help the Imam at the ICC.
Thank you. Welcome.
Ammar Al-Yunus. I'm the Director of the Islamic Center of Charlotte. I also help the Imam at ICC.
Thank you very much, and thanks for taking the time to be with us today. I'm your host, as you know by now, Faisal Ketkodia. Let's get straight into what the pillars of Islam are, and then let's expound on the details of them as we go along. Sheikh Bassam, can you just continue what you started saying earlier?
Yeah, okay. The pillars of Islam are five. The first one, to testify that there is no God but Allah alone, and Muhammad is His prophet and His messenger. The second pillar is to uphold the 5 obligatory prayers a day. The third one, to fast the month of Ramadan. And the fourth one, to give charity and alms. And the fifth one, to perform pilgrimage to Mecca.
Okay, thank you. Before we get into the details of the 5 pillars, starting with the Shahada, can one of you please express or explain the concept of worship in Islam? We have had a program before in which we've tried to explain the meaning of Islam, the meaning of Muslim, all coming from the same root word of peace and submission to the will of God. What about worship? How do you define ibadah or worship? If I can ask Shaykh Ammar on this.
Well, it's very simple. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I have only created the jinn kind and the mankind for that they worship me. So everything about our creation, everything that we do as Muslims is about worshipping Allah and Allah alone. And that's a very important concept. Muslims recognize that there is only one creator, one maintainer, one sustainer. We know him by the name of Allah, and He has given Himself attributes in the Quran, 99 other attributes to be exact.
The merciful, the
loving, the eternal, the first, the last, the just, the generous, the sustainer, all of it is there. So basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us and created everything else around us. Created the things that we know and created the things that we don't know. Including in His creation is specifically something that He has given to the humans, is the power of choice. To choose to worship and obey, and to choose not to worship and not to obey. So when He also created, part of His creation includes Satan. Shaitan. And Shaitan also has the same power to obey, to choose to obey, or to choose not to obey. And Satan made the choice of disobeying Allah. And he has made a promise that he would do his absolute best to sway the descendants of Adam away from the way of Allah. In other words, to sway the descendants of Adam, or the sons and daughters of Adam, from worshipping Allah and Allah alone. His powers, though, are limited to temptation, to suggestion, and that's it. It comes back to the choice that we make, whether to live by the rules that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, or to disobey Allah. I say all that because I want to establish two very important concepts. Number one, the concept of choice. Mm-hmm. Number two, and that pertains to your question, the outlook of worship. When we worship, we're doing two things. Number one, we're fulfilling the purpose behind our creation and our existence. Number two, we're purifying our deeds, and purifying ourselves and our deeds. It's within our nature to err and to fall in. When we worship, we clarify, we cleanse ourselves from that, and we strengthen the relationship between us and Allah, which is a direct relationship, which actually acts as a protection from the temptation of Shaitan.
Right, and I guess this is where the word jihad comes, as that struggle against the temptation.
One of the meanings of jihad, exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. One other important point I think that you mentioned there was the purpose. The purpose that we see as defined in the scriptures is actually recognizing our Creator.
Right.
Knowing that we are here on this earth due to Him and to recognize Him. Well, I thank you for that. I'd like to get straight into the first pillar of Islam. The first pillar of Islam is often referred to as the Shahada in Arabic, and as, if we try to translate it into English, as testimony or testament. Can you elaborate a bit more on that for us, Shamsuddin?
Islam is submission to Allah. Whatever Allah says is the law. Whatever He says is right. A Muslim is a person who claims that he has submitted to Allah. And he claims he's one of the Muslims. And to join the ranks of the Muslim and to express to people that you are one of them, to the Muslims, you say the Shahada, you testify. And the Shahada must first and foremost come from the heart, because belief is in the heart. But then it's uttered by the tongue, and it's substantiated by the limbs in actions. What you say with the tongue is Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I testify that there is no God except Allah, and I also testify that Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, is a slave and messenger. The essence of the Shahada or the Shahadatain, the testimony or two testimonies, is that we say from our hearts that there is only one God. There is a Creator. He has created us for a purpose, and that this purpose is to obey Him. We say that from our heart, and we say that we're going to do it according to the way of Muhammad. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him.
Thank you for that. So the Shahada, the first pillar of Islam, is declaring that I worship none but the one God. And I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of God. That seems to be quite a powerful statement, and I would just wonder whether the reason for the part that says Muhammad is the messenger of God, is that actually part of the Shahada, or is that something that...
It's part of the Shahada. In fact, that's why we say it's... Sometimes we call it the Shahada, which is the testimony, or the Shahadatain, which is the two testimonies. But they go hand in hand. You can look at it as one testimony because it all comes back to worshipping Allah. And the second one fits in as a part of the first, or make it one, because we worship Allah according to the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. If Allah wants us to obey Him, if Allah wants us to worship Him, there is no way that we can know how to do it except by Him teaching us. And the way He taught us is by sending prophets, and He sent many prophets. And Muhammad, may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, is one of the prophets of Allah, and he's the final prophet of Allah, and he's the prophet of Islam.
Okay, so the declaration of I bear witness that there is no God but the one God, and I bear witness that Muhammad is the messenger of God.